Rusin's a bubble, Sprint's a bubble, MCI's a bubble, or Verizon and MCI. All these little bubbles are interconnected, and some are connected and some are not directly connected, but use intermediaries to get to the others. And I'd say with Cogent, the fact is, getting back to TCP/IP not being like water, with a pipe, but literally stuff can just go into the ether, then people have found that Cogent sells things very attractively, but sometimes they say you get what you pay for. I say most of the time you don't even get what you pay for. Most of the time you get ripped off unless you can really know what you're doing, and that people are deciding to route around Cogent, even though they're look to be the best from a price perspective. Is that when the performance comes down to it, if you're trying to transit through Cogent to get to Sprint or Chinatel or some other bubble, when you have 100 meg of traffic, it's your problem. When you've got a gig of traffic, it may still be your problem, maybe not all your problem. If you've got 10 gigs of traffic, it's both your problem, because you can't even find an intermediary unless you directly connect. And we found those are substantial issues, especially if you have something compelling. Like, there's a lot of properties on Microsoft. Mostly the people like Messenger. They think Messenger's sexy. Same as AOL. They say AOL sucks, but they all love ICQ. They love Messenger. And the other ISP, mostly where they're worried is if someone calls their knock. Nobody wants the telephone to ring. They're losing money when the telephone rings. And so I think people are just deciding that Cogent was working real well until it's not working well anymore, and then they're forced to shunt traffic around them.
I think the other side too, when I first heard that, I actually listened to the call. And it's a lot more to the context of that question than just say it's slowing. Well, is it just slowing for Cogent? Is it slowing because there ain't enough access so it can continue to grow for Cogent? See, these are all the things that don't get asked when someone just makes that type of statement. So based on our numbers and what we're seeing, we see no flag. Absolutely not. You can literally right now bank on 100% a year.
The only thing I'd offer is, I think the word bandwidth is used interchangeably, meaning transit, meaning carrying packets and routing packets, and bandwidth in the sense of wavelengths to a private line. I would submit to you that more and more people have the capability to buy a private line that is Ethernet capable in 1 gig or 10 gig flavors, and it's driving the opportunity for more networks to connect. The goal in life now is the competition will continue to heat up, as it already has, between what's more valuable, the content or the eyeballs that look at it. And as long as that arms race, if you will continue, then the goal in life is just to connect more and more networks together. Because if you're both net payers to a big network, then you both have incentive to connect to each other. It's got its analogy, in my opinion, it has its parallels to the good old-fashioned voice business. And that is when you hit critical mass between networks, you connect. And that's been the way it's been for years, and that's the way, in my opinion, you'll see IP. And I continue to like that because I play on both sides of that. I'll ship your packets, or I'll provide you the wavelengths.
The difference there is the analogy between the voice network and the data network. And when you did an SS7 call setup, you got your 64 kilobit or raw bit, you got a 56 kilobit line, and it said, there you go, I got you your circuit, and no one's stepping on your circuit, but IP is not that way. So that's the real difference, is that because you got a busy signal. If you're going to do a call setup, you didn't get through. So now it's like, oh, okay, I got you covered, but then all these other people are also piling in, and it just...
Which provides more incentive, especially if it's performance sensitive, to connect.
1, 2, and then 3.
Just going back to that, to the balance growth question, because kind of coincident with what Cogent said, it's increasing stories about certain providers trying to cut down peer-to-peer traffic. Peer-to-peer traffic has been one of the big sources of growth. So my question is, are you seeing deceleration in peer-to-peer traffic, or is it isolated just to a couple of cable operators trying to meter it?
I think in Cogent's case, they're missing their revenue numbers because they cannot get enough customers to source traffic into them and effectively move it through and drop it off the control volume of this AS174. Because they slam the other ISP so hard, the other ISP says, okay, we got 10 gig interconnect, it's full, now what? They say, your move, Cogent, charge more, do something, I'm not going to upgrade your client.
Now, the other side of Cogent, when you listen to it, it's a fascinating company study from an archaeological point of view. You listen to the call and they say this, but then on the same call, they announced they're going to do a $50 million buyback of stock. And they had just completed one. So wait a minute, they're not AT&T, they're not Verizon, they're not Sprint. Okay, so they're this big. What the hell are you doing a stock buyback? You sit there on the thing and say, geez, it's flattening. Do you know how many laterals into a building they can buy for $50 million? Something don't add up, folks.
I'll resist talking about the financials in Cogent. The comment was made earlier about the amount of bandwidth being put into the Pacific Ocean that's in the works and some turning up. We've got the Olympics coming up in August. Anybody on the panel want to talk about bandwidth blips and what could happen with what could be a significantly online Olympics this year?
Well, I think there's a lot of activity being prepared for that. I don't know that all that capacity that was projected to come online will be online in time. But an interesting comparison maybe with, I saw the last U.S. Open, which was Tiger Woods and death. And I think there was a point made that I think at the peak of the Sunday afternoon, maybe Monday afternoon, actually, there were 10 million simultaneous sessions, and I think some people got excited about that, and some people said, "Well, that's really nothing." And so, to your point, what could happen? It will be interesting. Where will it all come in? I don't know that there will be all that great an increase in the capacity coming on, because I think some of those cables didn't come through as planned.
So you think there'll be a bottleneck because of the lack of cables?
Well, maybe will there be a bottleneck? I don't know. I think the other component to it is there could be some caching of the content, right? So, that's the other great thing is we haven't got, in my opinion, we haven't got that quite that sensitive yet to have that insistence of real time, if you will, or near real time with the content we get off the internet, especially on mobile phone. So I don't know. There's obviously ways around it that will suffice in this day and age, in my opinion, but. We'll see.
Well, I don't know if you'll really see a bottleneck oceanic, maybe locally, because if you don't have the right local infrastructure, you're never going to get out to the long haul. And the long haul is never going to get out to the ocean. You got to keep in mind when you hear people talk terabytes and this and that. The general idea when you light up a long haul network or an ocean, that's a hell of a lot easier than lighting up a metro. And you're worried about generating every 60 miles of long haul network. Well, you don't have the dB loss going on that you do in a metro because you're always cutting, dropping, adding, splicing, etc. So you're not sitting there with a ring saying, oh, I can just generate 60 miles per hour. Look at me. No. Every time you're cutting into that fiber, you're adding. It's like there's a ratio. For every mile of long haul fiber, you need 10 miles of metro to support it. For every 10 miles of metro, you need 100 miles of local access to support it. But that has to do with the multiplexing, the drops, the edge, splicing, and all that. It affects the dB budget. It's a reality. Long haul oceans, not like that. It's easy. If anything's more of a commodity network, it's going to be your long hauls and your oceanic network.
All the cost is at the edge of the network, always is, telco or cable.
I guess I'm coming back a couple of questions, sort of I'm not going to talk about Cogent either, but the growing use of DPI boxes by ISPs, by other companies, you name it. Does the panel see any sort of flattening off of demand due to DPI box use to limit the underlying cost if you're an ISP or whatever? Historically ISPs, the biggest cost was customer service. How do you man the help desk and whatever, and the IP transit fees or the backhaul fees overall, but as the volumes increase, so the number of customers doesn't increase, so the number of calls you get doesn't increase, but the underlying IP transit costs go up. So they start with the boxes. Do you see that changing the amount of demand?
I would say that it's a with respect to. If you're actually the ISP, they see that as the thank you God, you have bought me some time. And the